Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. Well, not baseball cards, basketball cards today. So, a few years ago, I completed my 1971-72 Topps basketball set, and it's in a binder. In fact, here it is right here. It's a nice little binder. It was one of those projects that I took my time on, and bought bulk here and there, and singles here and there, and a couple of cards fell in my lap. The usual way that you build a set. And it just kind of sit there, and been sitting there, and I haven't really talked about it much because it's not a baseball set, but it has a lot of sentimental value for me. In large part because it brings me back to that year. If you followed my channel, you know the 1970 Topps is the first set I collected as a child in baseball. But basketball, I didn't really collect the tall boys in 69 or 70. But by 71, that was the year that I really started collecting basketball cards again. And I'm trying to sort of piece it together in my head about why that might be. And I know that I do remember collecting the tall boys, probably not 69, I was a little too young for that, but 70, 71. I think I might have collected the tall boy. I remember some of those cards from when I was a kid, but I didn't save any of them, and I didn't really collect a lot of them. And I think part of the reason was because I didn't like the size. To me, a card size was the same size as the 1970 Topps, the standard size, the baseball that I had collected so many of. So 71, 72, I'll call it 71 from now, but it's the 71-72 season. They came out in the fall of 71. They were the first cards that were standard size for Topps in basketball. They were also the third year in a row that Topps had produced basketball, the third year in a row that Topps had produced basketball that was unlicensed by the NBA. And we'll go through this a little bit when we go through the cards, but they were not licensed for proprietary issues were protected. In other words, you could have the team, the city name you could have on the card, but you couldn't have the team name, which is a proprietary property of the NBA. So you'll see jerseys turned backwards. You'll see arms in front of the names of the teams. And I think, and this I think is probably a subject for somebody's video, a real deep dive into what the licensing was and why it was that way, and what Topps did during this period, because 72 isn't licensed either. It might have to do with that they had a contract with the NBA Players Association, but not the league itself. And if you recall, in baseball, Topps had a hard time with the Major League Baseball Players Association. In 68, 69, there were reused photos. Players were not sitting for photos, were not participating in that. So I think it was a holdout for the Players Association to get more money, which they did ultimately. So 1970 Topps is the first year that they started using fresh photos again. And so the basketball may have been a Players Association contract. So the players themselves are very cooperative, and you can see from the photos they turn their jerseys around, etc., in certain circumstances where they had to. So 71 is, like I said, the first standard size set for Topps in basketball. It's also the first set where ABA players are. There's a whole set of ABA players. So I think that might be part of the reason that I was very into it, because I was very into the ABA. Where I lived at the time was about a 10-minute drive from the Nassau Coliseum, where the New York Nets played. The Nets, of course, being the ABA franchise in New York, played at the Nassau Coliseum from 73 till 76. No, 72 to 76, I believe. Actually went to Nets games, multiple Nets games, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So part of the reason, I think, was that I didn't like the tall boys. They were too high, too big. Didn't fit my my conception of what a baseball card should be as an 8-year-old. And so the other thing, I think, is that the New York Knicks won the NBA title on May 8th, 1970, the first of their two titles. And so I think my brother, who was 10 years older than me at the time, became a big Knicks fan at that time, and that kind of spread to me, and we became more basketball fans. My father was not a basketball fan at all. So it was basically just me and my brother. And so essentially, I collected the cards of basketball now because I was also now into that sport. Like I said, the Nets were very close to home, and the Knicks were the team that that were in the finals. It won it in 70. They were in the finals in 72, and they won it in 73. And they were in the playoffs all during that time period too. So I think all of that together was part of the reason why 71 is the first basketball set that I really enjoyed, that I really collected fully. So that when I got back into the hobby, I only had one card left for many years. I had the Will Chamberlain card. It was the only card I had from that set. I don't know what happened to my copy of it. I had to go out and get a new one when I completed the set. But I decided when I saw a starter set for this set on eBay in 2018, maybe, that I was going to complete it. And it's not that hard. Let me just go through. There are some of the. I'm looking right now at the Cardboard Connection. Its set is broken into two series. Cards 1 to 144 feature NBA players, and 145 to 233 feature ABA players. There are also NBA playoff cards, 133 to 137, and then the leaders. So you'll see, and I'll show this when I show some of the cards. The end of the NBA is the NBA Finals and the leaders, and then it starts with the eight and the checklist, and then it starts with the ABA starts with the leaders. So you get 2 pages of leaders, and then it finishes with the rest of the ABA players. Key rookies: Bob Lanier, who had been in the league for years at that point. I guess he didn't have a card until that point. Rick Barry, who had also been in the NBA in the mid '60s and moved to the ABA. Nate Archibald, NBA star. Larry Brown, who had been in the ABA for years. Dan Issel, Rudy Tomjanovich, and Dave Cowens, the NBA center for the Celtics. So really, really good set. Really fun set. One of the things about it, and we'll show this when we look at the cards, is that the graphics are very much from the 70s. And I wore the 72 shirt today because the 72 baseball set, which came out after this set, has that lettering, which is very 70s. It's not the same as the basketball, but I think it's kind of similar. So the style is kind of similar. But so let's look at some cards. Oh, I did want to give a shout out to part of the reason that I'm back interested in talking about my basketball cards is because of two gentlemen, Raven Philly and Tony TJ's Online, who have been this year is the first year that they put together the Hall of Fame for basketball cards. And they've been doing the rounds in various videos, and just a terrific project that they have going on. And they're really, two of my favorite guys in the hobby. And it's just sort of made me think more about basketball cards over the last a couple of months. I voted long ago. I'll put a link in. I think the voting actually ended, so maybe I won't put a link in, but they're going to be announcing the winners, I think, in the next coming week. So I'll link to Tony's channel and to Ray's channel, and have you go look at that because it's a cool thing. And there's a couple of 71 cards in there, but I don't think they're going to win. The Archibald, I think, and the Barry is in there, but I don't think they're going to win because they're not rookies. Well, they are rookies, but they're not like Lou Alcindor rookies or Will Chamberlain or Jerry West or any of those. By the way, those players are all in this set. But anyway, so let's look at some cards. I just want to show some of my basketball cards. This is it. Besides this set, this is it. There's the 72 in the top middle with the yellow background. That's the 1972-73 top set, the following year from this set that we're talking about today. And that is, of course, Earl Monroe. It is Earl Monroe's first card with the Knicks, which is why I own it. It's PSA 6. I think it cost me $14, so not big. The card on the left is cool. It is the Icy Bear card. Now, Icy Bear, I guess they produced like ice cream or like some sort of flavored iced drink or dessert. And they did have an NBA license in 1972. I've looked this up, and I was told they had an NBA license, but I think it's probably a license with the Players Association, similar to Topps during this period. And I got this Walt Frazier card. Walt Frazier is one of my favorite basketball players of all time. I got the card ungraded, and Walt Frazier was signing. He's been signing quite a bit lately. I think he was at the National. He's been at a couple other places. He was signing out at a sports card store on Long Island. I drove all the way out, waited online. It was a pretty big line. It was good to see. Delightful. Everybody talked. It took a while to get through the line because he was talking to people, shaking hands, chatting, smiling, laughing. I mean, just totally delightful. A player who was really cool to watch, a man who was super cool back in the 70s, and now he's an announcer for the Knicks. And I, listen to almost every Knicks game and or watch every Knicks game, and he's on it. I just love Clyde Frazier from earliest in my childhood to now, and to see him in person for the only time I've ever seen him up close in person, and to have him be so delightful was really, really cool, and just wonderful human being. And so when I come up to the table and I put this card in front of him, he looks at it. He doesn't know what it is. And I'm laughing because I said, yeah, Icy Bear had for one season a contract with, I thought it was NBA, but I think now it was probably the Players Association. So he's laughing, he signs it, and beautiful signature. And I thought to myself, if he's never signed this card before, this might even be a pop one of a signature of Frazier on the 1972 Icy Bear. So that got sent off to PSA. They authenticated the card as the 1972 Icy Bear. The autograph obviously is authentic. I watched Walt Frazier do it myself, so didn't need PSA to tell me to do that. But I wanted to get it into a slab, into a holder, so that I could display it, and I do. It's usually up over here. Julius Erving was also one of my idols because he played for the Nets, and I've told this story on Instagram how my basketball team when I was like 10 or 11 went all together to an ABA game at Nassau Coliseum, and they got us somehow or another. We got onto the floor during warm-ups and watched Julius Erving in his Nets uniform doing the warm-ups, the layup drill from about 10 feet away, which was a pretty awesome memory. So I have one of his cards with the Nets, and also one of his cards with the Sixers, the 78, which I think is a cool card. And then Bernard King, who's another Knicks hero, his rookie card, which is unfortunately with the Nets. So that's my basketball collection. Until you get to this. This set, oh man. So a good example of the turning the jersey around is card number 1. Interestingly enough, Oscar Robertson was number 1 jersey, and he's card number 1 in the set, and one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and just a fantastic basketball card. And card number 2 is Bill Bradley, who's also in the Hall of Fame and a Knicks legend. So that's sort of a nice start to the set. And as you can see, it's got that cool writing on top. Detroit, Phoenix, New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland. These are all the NBA teams. So this isn't the second page. I only sampled like maybe 6 pages of the NBA. So the next page I'm sampling here is the Nate Archibald rookie. You can see another cool card. Of course, Willis Reed, another Knicks legend and a hero of the championship teams. And then there's John Havlicek, who was a Celtics legend, Hall of Famer. A couple other cool players on there. Jeff Petrie was a scorer for the Portland Trailblazers around that time. The third page, I don't know which page it was. It's in here somewhere, but the third page that I'm showing here is Dave Cowan's rookie, which is cool. And then, of course, the logo, Jerry West there. Would have preferred with the West card maybe a little closer up photo because he looks kind of small here, but kind of cool card. All these cards are great. On his left is Dave Stallworth. His name will come up in a few minutes. He was on the Knicks. He ended up on the Baltimore Bullets. The page on the right there, you can see the Pete Maravich card, not his rookie, second year. Kind of an expensive card. I think that example, if I look up close at it, it's not particularly high grade, but it's a good one. You also have Calvin Murphy, who was, I believe, a Hall of Famer, Houston Rockets. Hal Greer, Hall of Famer from the 76ers, and then Bob Lanier, of course. That is a rookie card of Bob Lanier for the Detroit Pistons, another Hall of Famer. Then you've got Walt Clyde Frazier, of course. Had to show him. There he is. I love this card so much. He's dribbling, and you got the yellow background with the Knicks, the New York logo there. Jojo White, who was a great guard for the Celtics, not in the Hall of Fame, I don't think. And there's the Chamberlain card, bottom left. A card, like I said, which for some reason, I don't know what happened to all my cards when I collected as a kid, like as a little kid. But later on, when I was collecting vintage in the late 70s as a teenager, I know I had that card. It was in terrible shape, but it was the only card I had left from this set. And I don't know what happened to it. It might have been destroyed in the Sandy flood. But anyway, I have it back now, and I have a better copy now. Now, if you look at the upper right there, you can see Lou Alcindor. This is the final Kareem Abdul-Jabbar card with Lou Alcindor as his name. He changed his name, and in the 1972 Topps, I checked this morning, 1972 Topps, the following season, he has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the card, is the name on the card. As you can see, there's also another Nick, Dave DeBusschere. I think I flicked past Howie Comives. Howie Comives on Detroit is on Detroit because he had been on the Knicks and he was traded for DeBusschere, which is a great deal for the Knicks. And then, of course, Connie Hawkins, a ABA legend who came to the NBA in Phoenix and is a great story. Connie Hawkins, fantastic basketball player. I think he played for Pittsburgh in the ABA, and he led the league in scoring and rebounds the same season. He was just a total monster, but had issues. And so Connie Hawkins is an interesting story, but for another day. The next page there, you can see Elvin Hayes, Hall of Famer for Houston. And now Mike Reardon is the bottom right there. You wouldn't necessarily know Mike Reardon. He was a bench player for the Knicks. He was on the title team in 1970. But in the middle of the season in 1971, Mike Reardon and Dave Stallworth, if we remember from a few pages ago, were traded to Baltimore for a player there, as you can see in the middle of the screen on the right, Earl Monroe. And Earl had been a all-star with Baltimore and had gone head-to-head with Clyde Frazier, and they were rivals. And Monroe was just a fantastic, what did they call him? They called him the basketball Jesus. He was from Philadelphia. He went down to play in North Carolina. I think it was like Winston-Salem State or something. And he ended up on Baltimore. And then I guess he had some injuries, and his performance fell down a little bit. And the Knicks acquired him in the middle of the season in 1971. And I remember the day. I remember this day. My brother coming home from school. My brother was, I think, a senior in high school that year, and I was, 8 or whatever, and or 7. And he telling me that the Knicks had acquired Earl Monroe, and this was like the greatest day of my youth. So I'll never forget it. And of course, Monroe came to the Knicks in 71, and he wasn't as good as he had been because he was suffering from, I think it was ankle or foot injury, but he got better. And then, of course, he was part of the championship team in 1973, went on to become a Hall of Famer and is a Knicks legend. And he still comes to Knicks games these days. I think he works for the organization in community relations. Also a very nice man. I haven't had the opportunity to meet him, but I would like to. Or seeing Earl around Madison Square Garden these days is one of the treasures of being a Knicks fan. So that's the end of the NBA set. Bill Bridges is the last card. And then they do, there's 3, and then there's a couple on the next page of the NBA Finals. There's 5 cards total. Milwaukee beat, I guess it was Baltimore. Milwaukee was in the West, and Baltimore was in the East. Baltimore had upset the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe. I think they had come back and won after being down 3-1 or something. It was some very disappointing outcome for the Knicks. NBA champions getting upset, maybe even at the Garden in Game 7, something like that. I can look it up. But so Baltimore went into the finals. They lost to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, at the time Lou Alcindor, Oscar Robertson, still really good, although older. Bobby Dandridge. There was Lucius Allen, a few other players. They were a really solid team, and they won the NBA title. Milwaukee would not win another NBA title until a few years ago, to be honest. Now, this is where the leader cards come in, the NBA leader cards, and then the NBA checklist, and then the ABA checklist, and then the ABA leader cards. And I put the leader cards in here because they're little gold mines. You've got scoring leaders with Kareem, Havlicek, and Elvin Hayes. Then you've got rebounding leaders with Wilt Chamberlain and and Kareem or Lou Alcindor. You've got assist leaders with Jerry West and Oscar Robertson. I mean, it's just a Hall of Fame just all over the place on those leader cards. So they're really cool. And then, of course, you get the ABA leader cards. Now, again, as I said before, this is the first time that ABA players are on a top set. So I am collecting these cards as an 8-year-old, and these are cards. I see these ABA players on equal footing with the NBA players. And there's a lot of things that happened that resulted in the merger in 1976. One of which is that every time the ABA played the NBA in like an exhibition all-star game, the ABA kicked their ass. The other thing is that the ABA started to get better players, Dr. J, obviously, but we'll see a few of the other ones, Artis Gilmore, Dan Issel, guys like that. The ABA had better players. They were seen on equal footing, and things like this, where they end up in the Topps 1971 set, it's a separate set, but it's part of the whole main set. And so kids like me thought of the ABA as on equal footing. And once they got to equal footing, they had negotiation. They had some negotiation chips, and they were able to get themselves 4 teams to merge into the NBA. Finances were always a problem in the ABA, and I'll link to it down below. I believe the name of the book is Loose Balls, and the author is Terry Pluto, I think. Loose Balls by Terry Pluto. Fantastic book on the ABA. All about, it's a fair and very realistic portrayal of what was going on. A lot of fun, great basketball, great players, a lot of personalities, but always financial issues, all kinds of issues. The teams moved from city to city, changed their names, all kinds of stuff. So ABA is a fascinating league for me, that I was into as a kid, and I'm still into now. So you can see card number 1, I guess it's probably like 140 something, is Larry Brown. That's a rookie card for Larry Brown. Larry Brown, of course, would go on to coach multiple teams in the NBA, including winning titles, I think, in Detroit. He did coach the Knicks at one point. It was not a successful tenure. Only a couple of pages. I think this is it. Yeah, I only did 2 pages of ABA. You have the Rick Barry rookie card down there in the middle. That was kind of expensive, maybe one of the most expensive ABA cards, certainly in this set. And of course, Julius Erving is not in this set. He didn't appear first until the following year, 1972, his famous iconic rookie card. I do love this guy, Dan Hester, for Kentucky. I don't know anything about him, but he has a very, very classic 70s look here. He's wearing like a multicolored necklace, and he's got these gigantic, what do you call them, mutton chop sideburns. He looks like right out of a guy who would be like a bad guy on a 1970s cop show. Just love that card. Upper right, Zumo Beatty. Zumo Beatty was an NBA star who kicked over to the ABA and was one of the rebounding leaders, played for Utah. I forget what Utah's name was, but you see some of these places. Carolina, that was the Carolina Cougars. Pittsburgh started out as the Pipers, and then they ended up as the Condors, I believe. Texas Chaparrals, There's you can see Ron Franz for Florida Floridians, Virginia Squires, of course. Memphis had a bunch of different names. I remember them as the Memphis Tams. Kentucky was Kentucky all along. Now, this is the final slide here. On the bottom right is a guy that I would recommend getting into Wikipedia and maybe some other sites and looking into John Brisker. John Brisker was known as the heavyweight champion of the ABA because John Brisker would fight anyone, anywhere, at any time. There are games where he was ejected in the first minute of the game for fighting with guys. He was an enforcer, but he was also a scorer. If we go back to the leader cards, he's in the scoring leaders. I think one year he averaged 29 points a game for Pittsburgh, and another year he averaged like 28 or 27. After this season, he skipped over to the ABA. I think he played for Seattle for a few years. John Brisker left the United States to go to Uganda in 1978 and was never heard from again. He was ultimately declared dead in 1985 so that they could distribute his estate. But he is a disappearance case that has never been solved. Some of his teammates think he went over there to be a mercenary in the Ugandan revolution. Other people think he got in with the wrong people or he said something wrong. But John Brisker had a hairline temper, as I think they call it, and like I said, fought at the drop of a dime. And who knows what happened to him? But great basketball player, great story. In that Terry Pluto book, John Brisker is all over the place in that book. And he's just one of those guys that was early 70s basketball, a lot more interesting in many respects than basketball these days. So that's my 1971 top set. I had a lot of fun with this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I like most sets that I complete, I continue to upgrade. If I get a card that's a better example, I'll put it in the binder and pull out what the lesser example and move it. I recently got the Bill Bridges card, which is the last card in the NBA set. I recently got a really sharp copy of that and then pulled out my other copy, which wasn't too bad. But some of these I need to upgrade, like the Maravich and the Nate Archibald. So anyway, folks, I am leaving for California today, and I'll be out there for about a week. Coming back on Saturday. We'll do another show on Sunday. I've set up an interview with another YouTuber, a extraordinarily interesting and entertaining fellow with an amazing collection. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you have any information about the licensing issues that I talked about for the 69, 70, 71, and 72 NBA sets, or reasons why it happened, or who was with the license, the Players Association or the NBA, or however it works, if you have any more information about that, would love to hear about it. Otherwise, let me know about your history of collecting basketball. So anyway, thanks, folks. We will see you back here next week, probably again on Sunday, not the Saturday recording. But you won't hear from me much in the next week because I will be out of state. But anyway, take care, guys.